every Sunday at exactly 5 p.m. The little flower shop on Rosewood Street closed its doors. The owner, 65-year-old Grace Whitmore, never stayed a minute longer. She locked the door, turned the sign to closed, picked up one fresh white rose, then quietly walked to the town cemetery. For 22 years, she had never missed a single Sunday, no matter the weather, no matter how sick she felt. People believed she was simply honouring someone she had lost, but no one knew the real reason. One rainy Sunday evening, as Grace reached for the shop door, a loud knock echoed through the empty street. She turned around. Standing outside was a little boy, no older than 10. His clothes were soaked from the rain. In one hand, he held a crumpled $5 bill. In the other, an old photograph. Grace opened the door. "We're closed, sweetheart." The little boy looked down. "I know. But today is the only day that matters." Something in his voice made Grace pause. She stepped aside. "Come in." The little shop smelled of fresh lilies and roses. The boy carefully unfolded the old photograph. It showed a smiling young woman holding a baby. "Can you make a bouquet? That looks like the flowers in this picture." Grace studied the faded photo. Her hands suddenly froze. The bouquet: white roses, blue hydrangeas, tiny lavender flowers. She knew it. She had arranged those exact flowers herself 23 years ago. Grace looked at the little boy. "Where did you get this photograph?" "My mom gave it to me. She said these were her favourite flowers." Grace whispered, "What's your mother's name?" The boy smiled. "Anna Carter." The colour disappeared from Grace's face. She almost dropped the photograph, because Anna Carter was the name she had spent 22 years trying to forget. Grace quietly prepared the bouquet. She never took her eyes off the photograph. When she finished, the boy handed her the $5. She gently pushed the money back. "No, this one is a gift." The little boy looked surprised. "Why?" Grace smiled sadly. "Because your mother once gave me something I could never repay." As the boy reached for the bouquet, a folded letter slipped out from behind the photograph. It landed on the floor. Grace picked it up. Across the front, only 3 words were written: "For Grace only." The little boy looked confused. "My mom told me if I ever met a florist named Grace, I had to give her that letter." Grace's hands began to shake. She looked at the handwriting. Even after 22 years, she recognized it instantly. It was Anna's, the last letter she had ever written. But Anna had disappeared. 22 years ago, everyone believed she was gone forever. Grace slowly opened the envelope. The very first sentence stole the air from her lungs. "Grace, if you're reading this, my son finally found you." Grace covered her mouth. Tears rolled down her cheeks. The little boy whispered, "Did you know my mom?" Grace looked at him with trembling eyes, then quietly answered, "I didn't just know her. I made a promise to her. A promise I've kept every Sunday for 22 years." Grace could barely breathe. Her trembling fingers unfolded the letter. The little boy stood quietly beside her. The flower shop was completely silent. Only the sound of rain tapped against the windows. Grace slowly began to read. "Dear Grace, if this letter reaches you, it means my son finally found your flower shop. First, please forgive me. I disappeared without saying goodbye. Not because I stopped loving you, but because I wanted to protect you. There are truths I could never tell you, but now my son deserves to know them. His name is Noah, and you're the only person I trust to tell him who I really was. Love always. Anna." Grace folded the letter against her chest. She couldn't stop crying. Noah looked at her. My mum is in the hospital. The doctors say she doesn't have much time. They told me to give you that letter before it was too late. Grace's heart shattered. Why didn't she come herself? Noah lowered his head. She said, you deserved an explanation. But she was afraid. You would never forgive her. Grace slowly sat down. 22 years of memories flooded back. She and Anna had grown up together. They were more than friends. They were like sisters. Together they dreamed of opening the most beautiful flower shop in town. Every bouquet, every ribbon, every flower had once been their shared dream. Then one day, Anna suddenly disappeared, without a goodbye, without a letter, without a single explanation. Grace searched for months. She called hospitals, police stations, every town nearby. No one knew where Anna had gone, until today. Grace looked at Noah. Take me to your mother. Half an hour later, they arrived at St. Mary's Hospital, room 214. Grace stopped outside the door. Her hands were shaking. She wasn't sure if she was ready. Noah gently smiled. She still talks about you. Grace slowly opened the door. A weak voice whispered, I knew you'd come. Grace looked toward the bed. Anna looked older, much weaker, but her smile was exactly the same. Neither woman spoke. For several seconds, they simply looked at each other. Then Grace crossed the room, wrapped her arms around Anna. Both of them cried without saying a word. Finally, Anna whispered, I'm so sorry. Grace shook her head. No, I'm just glad you're here. After a long silence, Anna took a deep breath. There was something I never told you. The day I disappeared, I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because someone threatened our family. Grace frowned. What do you mean? Anna reached into the drawer beside her bed. She removed an old newspaper clipping. Across the headline were the words, Local business owner arrested for fraud. Grace looked at the photograph beneath the headline. Her face turned pale. It was her own late husband. Anna quietly spoke. He discovered that I had evidence against him. He told me, if I stayed, you would be the one who suffered. So I ran away. I thought leaving was the only way to protect you. Grace couldn't believe what she was hearing. For 22 years, she had believed Anna had abandoned her, but Anna had actually sacrificed everything to save her life. Just then, the hospital room door slowly opened. A middle-aged man stepped inside. The moment Anna saw him, her face turned white. She whispered, No, it can't be. The man looked directly at Grace, then at Noah. Finally, he spoke the words that changed everything. I'm Noah's father, and I've been searching for both of you for 22 years. The room became completely silent. Grace stared at the man standing in the doorway. Anna looked terrified. Noah held his mother's hand tightly. The man slowly stepped forward. My name is David. I know this is impossible to believe, but I never stopped looking for my family. Grace spoke first. If that's true, where have you been for 22 years? David lowered his head. The day Anna disappeared, I was working overseas. When I came home, the house was empty. Neighbors told me Anna had vanished. Police believed she had left voluntarily, but I knew she never would. I searched every city I could, every year. I came back to this town, hoping for one clue. Anna's eyes filled with tears. I wanted to contact you, but the people threatening us, they told me if I spoke to either of you, they would destroy everyone I loved. David slowly walked closer. You carried that burden alone. For 22 years, Anna nodded. I thought I was protecting you. David gently held her hand. You were, but you shouldn't have had to do it alone. Grace quietly placed the bouquet of white roses beside Anna's bed. You remember these flowers? Anna smiled through her tears. They were always our symbol. When life became too painful, we promised that white roses would remind us. That hope never dies. Grace laughed softly. And every Sunday, I brought one white rose to the cemetery. Noah looked confused. But Mom isn't buried there. Grace smiled. I know. I wasn't visiting a grave. I was keeping a promise. I promised that if Anna ever came home, she would still find a white rose waiting for her. Anna covered her face and cried. For 22 years. You never gave up on me. Grace shook her head. You were my sister. How could I? A few weeks later, Anna's health began to improve. The doctors called it remarkable. She smiled more. She laughed again. And for the first time in decades, she wasn't carrying fear alone. Spring arrived. The flower shop reopened with a brand new sign. It read, Grace and Anna Florists. Just below it, in smaller letters.
Every bouquet tells a story. People came from neighboring towns to visit, not because the flowers were the cheapest, but because every customer left feeling seen. If someone had lost a loved one, Grace quietly added a white rose. If someone was celebrating a new beginning, Anna tucked a sprig of lavender into the bouquet. No extra charge, just kindness. Noah spent every Saturday after school helping in the shop. He learned the meaning of every flower. White roses for hope, sunflowers for strength, blue hydrangeas for forgiveness. One afternoon, a little girl walked into the shop. She only had 3 coins. I want flowers for my grandma, Grace smiled. She remembered another child, who had once walked into her life with almost nothing. She made the most beautiful bouquet in the shop when the little girl asked, Is this really enough? Grace knelt beside her and whispered, The greatest gifts are never measured by money. Years later, Noah became the owner of the flower shop. Above the entrance, he hung a small wooden plaque. It read, Never stop believing in the people you love. Sometimes they're fighting battles you cannot see. Visitors often stopped to read it. Many wiped away tears because they understood, sometimes, love doesn't disappear, it simply waits for the right season to bloom again. And every Sunday evening, just before closing, Grace, Anna, David, and Noah placed a single white rose outside the shop. Not for sorrow, not for goodbye, but as a reminder that hope always finds its way home.